Hey guys, so in this course today we will be covering and simple application of employee management system created using the Spring Boot framework, and in the database side we will be using the relation database. And apart from this, like, we'll be creating a simple CRUD application in this employee management system. Means you can able to create a new employee or save the new employee or update the existing employee. And apart from this, like, you can delete the employee also. For example, if I say it, so we are creating initially a new employee, John's. We are creating a new employee with the IDs. It is auto generated, so by sequence as of now it is taking 5. Maybe it has taken earlier 1 2 3, so that's why it is taking as 5. And now we want to update it. So simple way, we will pass the John name, it will be showing here, and it will update. Now we want to update to our suppose Mohan here. Okay, and then again we will call. So with the same ID, that employee name has been updated. So as of now, like, we have taken two fields only, ID and name, but you can take other fields also, like salary and other things. So this how this employee management system part can be done. Now we are adding another employee, suppose Ryan, we are adding it, and we are adding more employees here, Tyler, then we are adding a clause. Okay, so 4 employees have been added. Now suppose in the real scenario, if I say it, so if some employee left the organization, so what they do it, they temporarily delete it. As of now, like, we are deleting whole data here. Suppose Mohan has left the data, so, or left the organization, so they will just delete the data. It is asking, are you sure to delete? Yeah, we are deleting this. So we will be building this whole application in this course. And the main motive of this course is that if you are a new also to Spring Boot or Spring Framework, so you will be able to learn the Spring Boot or Spring Framework from scratch. In this we will be using the Spring Boot, and the version will be around 4, and the minimum Java requirements or system requirements will be using the Java 17 version. And database side, initially we will be using the S2 database, but later on we will be using or migrating to MySQL. Then our plan is this to secure this UI or application, we will be integrating with the JWT token, and we will be adding that also. So that is the main motive of this application, that you will learn Spring Boot plus security, Spring security, like how JWT works and everything. Plus you will learn the REST template or REST APIs, like CRUD application, how you can create a simple CRUD application, get, post, put, and delete, how it works it. So these things will be covered in this course, and hope you like this video. Okay, so let's get quickly started. And before that, like, if you haven't liked, share, and subscribe my channel, please like, share, subscribe, and make sure you hype this video. Okay, so in the code wise, if I show you, so what we have done it, we have created a simple controller, then we have created the entity class, then we have created the service layer, and then we have the simple UI. I have created it. You can easily create it. You can take help of any AI tool also for creating it, as much features, but I have used this minimum features I have kept here, like JavaScript I have used and HTML I have used here. Okay, and apart from this, in this you will also learn by how to write the unit test cases by using the Mockito framework. For each API we have or for each REST API, we have covered the unit test cases also, end to end, positive scenario also and negative scenario also. Okay, so let's get started. And before that, let's have a quick introduction, like why Spring came into the picture, what was the requirement here, and after that, what was the disadvantage of using the Spring, and then why Spring Boot came, each and everything. So basically, before Spring, we were using the traditional J2EE applications, J2EE applications, or Java applet applications. We were, while connecting to database, we were using the JDBC connections, and that contains a lot of boilerplate code that have the tight coupling. So these were the major problems. Like before Spring Framework, how the flow was working from browser. we were using the servlet, if you have heard about before 2003, or the old applications are most of the applications have been migrated to Spring Boot. I'm not sure about it, like which applications, or some applications maybe still be using the servlet applications, but most of the applications have been migrated to Spring Boot. And if any of the applications were using the Java applet APIs also, so that also have been migrated to Spring Boot, because from Java 26 version onwards they have removed the applet. So what is there, that from browser it goes to servlet, then from servlet it goes to the business logic, and from business logic it goes to the DAO layer, and DAO layer, inside that layer where we are using the database operations. So this was the flow before the Spring framework. Then earlier what we were doing, for each layer we were creating the manual object, so that's why there was a tight coupling, you can say. Suppose for example employee DAO is, we are creating the DAO object, then we inside service layer we want to use the DAO object, so we are creating or passing the DAO object inside the service layer while creating a new object. So objects were tightly coupled, hard to replace or test. So for testing these applications, it was very hard, and it contains a lot of boilerplate code also. So these were the problems before the Spring. Then after the Spring, when it came, so we were able to use the auto wiring. So what Spring says, basically Spring says, for example, there is a controller. Okay, there is a controller, and inside that, now if you want, if you are using the Spring framework, so now if you want to use the any or call the methods of any service layer, because each and everything we can't do in a same class, right? Because it violates the solid principles also. Okay, so that's why in controller it will be having all the rest HTTP endpoints, and from controller we want to call the service layer. So this service layer contains the business logic. What it contains? It contains the business logic all. So from controller, the flow goes to service layer. Now controller wants to call the methods of the service layer. So earlier we were doing this way, but now what we want to do it, we will auto wire it. So what the Spring says, we just need to tell the Spring that we need to auto wire service object. Just we need to write this, whether we are doing auto wiring, three ways are there. First one is constructor based injection. Then second one is setter based injection. Then third one is field level injection. Three types of dependency injections are there. So this is the dependency injection. I will tell you more about it. Sorry. So what it is doing here, that you need to auto wire this service object inside the controller class. So what you need to just tell the Spring that we need this Spring service object, and rest Spring will take care of it internally. That this object or service object will be injected into a controller class using the dependency injection. And okay, something is auto wired is there, right? We have read the, okay. So this Spring will, what it will does, that it will inject this service object inside the controller class as soon as it sees the auto wire, or via constructor based injection, setter based injection, or field level injection, either of these three. So okay, it understood. Okay, acha, the user wants to inject this service layer object inside the controller, so it will directly inject it. So that is the major scenario. So what is the dependency injection? So dependency injection is the you can say way that it achieves the loose coupling in the way which you inject the object into another class using @autofire by either of these three injections, and it achieves or it follows the principle of the IOC. So what is IOC? Two terms are there, IOC and dependency injection. IOC, that is inversion of control, and dependency injection. So IOC is that it is the principle which manages, what it manages, it manages the object of or the bean life cycle, each and everything, like when is the bean created, or when is the bean destroyed, when is the bean instantiated, each and every life cycle is being controlled by the IOC. Then dependency injection, what it does, that it inject the dependencies into the class, and which turns or achieves the loose coupling. So this is the Spring framework is doing, and in the Spring framework was introduced in 2003 year, And apart from this, like in Spring framework, you can create an easily Java or J2EE based applications with less boilerplate code. But still, we were using the XML files and each and everything in Spring. Now, if I go tell you here where it is. So this is the Spring IO site, official website. So what with the help of the Spring framework, what we can do? It makes the Java simple. With the help of the Spring framework, if you are using the generative AI nowadays, so you can easily integrate the AI into your Spring application without reinventing the wheel. Means what it does means that why we are integrating this AI, because Spring using AI we can take the health of the application, like how if any API is going to down, so AI can easily tell you, and AI can easily tell you much more things in your application which you can't take it. Like if you want to test it, so that also testing part of the whole application, regression testing if you want to do, so each and everything AI can do it. And Spring, using Spring we can build the microservices so that one service can communicate with other microservice. Spring can build your applications as a reactive, which is asynchronous non-blocking, means parallelly or concurrently multiple operations of the you can be worked here using the reactive application using the mono or web flux. Then in cloud also, you in Spring can help you, like you can create your own cloud config server, or in cloud also you can build an application. Then web apps also you can build, then serverless application you can build, then event driven architecture, or you want to integrate with the Apache Kafka suppose for event driven, so that also applications can be built using Spring. Then batching also can be done, means Spring batch is there in which the tasks are being executed in the batches, so that these things Spring can be done easily. So that's why Spring is very popular, and nowadays in most of the companies are using Spring framework. Okay, but there was a disadvantage, or there was a lot of boilerplate still in Spring. Most of our services today are based on Spring Boot. So basically, this is a senior software engineer of Netflix. What he has said that still the services what they are using, they are in the Spring Boot, not in Spring. Because in Spring we were having lot of application context.xml, web.xml, multiple XML files were getting created. So to resolve that, Spring Boot came into the picture, and Spring Boot is also the framework only of Spring, and the latest version of Spring Boot is around, or the stable version we are using is 4 plus version with the Java 17 which is compatible, and the latest Java version is 26, so it supports the Java 26 also version. So Spring Boot creates a standalone application. In Spring we were adding the server from outside, but in Spring Boot we are embedded Tomcat server and each and everything. Will not go much in detail in Spring Boot because there is already a detailed video in this course only, where I am covering each and everything about Spring Boot. Okay.
Like introduction to Spring Boot, firstly I will go it. So Spring Boot is nothing that is a framework. Like Spring is called the framework of framework, as it is supports multiple like Java, multiple systems. So that's why it is called as framework of framework. And inside that, Spring Boot is a frame like part of that Spring only. But it is a framework that simplifies Java based web and enterprises applications built on top of the Spring framework, as I had told, designed to reduce the boilerplate code and configuration, and enables rapid application development with the minimal startup. So while using the Spring Boot, developer mainly need to focus on our code and business. And apart from this, like these annotations, these configurations, these will be taken care by the Spring Boot. It is having very good advantages that I will be telling in future. Let me start. Okay. So why we use the Spring Boot? This is the most asked interview questions in most of the product based companies or the service based companies, like why we are using the Spring Boot. If we are already having the Spring, so why we are going with the Spring Boot? So what it does, that it simplifies the development with the pre-configured setups, like it is having the auto configuration feature. That feature, like what it does, that it auto configures all the dependencies which are defined in the class path. So like how auto configuration comes in the picture. So let me tell you, there is a main annotation that is at the rate spring boot application. It is a combination of three annotations: at the rate configuration, at the rate auto configuration, and at the rate component scan. So at the rate auto configuration, what it does, that it auto configures all the dependencies defined in the class path. Similarly, at the rate component scan, what it does, that it scans all the packages, necessary package through which the spring boot needs to be needs to be tell by the developer that these particular packages we need to scan. Similarly, apart from this, like we are having at the rate configuration, the third annotation, so which tells the spring boot that it provides a definition of the beans basically. So that's why we uses these three annotations with the single annotation, that is at the rate spring boot application. That is the main entry point of the application, which contains a like public static void main method. Now the second advantage, like why we are using the spring boot, it is having the embedded tomcat server, and apart from this embedded tomcat server, we can use some other servers. We can exclude this tomcat by excluding in the dependency in the pom.xml, and we can include like jetty underdo for easy deployment. Similarly, there are opinionated defaults for quick setup. So for quick setup, we just need to go to the spring initializer. This is a basic one way of doing the setup, and we just need to add the dependency which we want to add, and spring boot will just auto configures, and everything, all the configuration will be taken care by the spring boot. This is the main advantage. And as I mentioned, that if you are nowadays, if you are using the microservices architecture instead of monolithic architecture, so mainly most of the companies or most of the projects are being using the spring boot as a framework with the microservices. Now the last point, second last step, that is strong integration with the spring's ecosystem. It's internally, it also supports the spring MVC. That is, spring MVC means model view controller, spring data, etc. Like spring data JPA, it supports JDBC if you want to integrate. Apart from this, like multiple systems, it supports Hibernate, which is the most popular implementation of the JPA. And the last advantage, which is the most used advantage and which is the most beneficial advantage, I can say, that it reduces the development and the deployment time. So these three points, if you tell to the interviewer in the while during the interview, so you can like easily answer the question, and interviewer requirement will also be fulfilled, that why we use the spring boot. This is the most important question, and 90% of the companies are asking nowadays, that why we are using the spring boot. Like if we are going to for product based companies like Mastercard, UBS, Goldman, so, and apart from this, like services companies like TCS, Wipro, Capgemini, so these are also asking this basic question, whether they are asking tough question, but this question will necessarily be asked. 90% chances are that why we use the spring, what are the advantages of spring boot. Like if we were having the spring, so why, what is the need of the spring boot, why we were using it. So you can simply tell these points, and so it will be like very easy for you to explain it. This PPT I will be sharing in my Git link, you can go through it once. And apart from this, like if you haven't subscribed my channel and doesn't like it, so please like and subscribe it, and mention any feedback, any comments, or any topic which I want to be covered. So now key features of Spring Boot, as I mentioned, it is having the key features as auto configuration, which reduces manual setup and configurations. Like it auto configures all the dependencies which we have defined in the class part. It downloads all the necessary jars from the central Maven repository. So this is the main advantage of the auto configuration. It is having the embedded Tomcat server from internally only. We do not need to add externally from our side. This is the second advantage. Third one is it creates a production ready standalone applications. It runs without requiring external containers. Like it doesn't require any external containers, and everything will be internally taken care by the Spring Boot. This is the third advantage. Fourth advantage, production ready. As I mentioned, it builds in metrics, health checks, and logging. Apart from this, like one more feature is Spring Boot having, that is Spring Boot Actuator, which I will be covering in my further series of this Spring Boot. So Spring Boot Actuator, what it does, that it covers, it tells the developer that what is the status of the application, what is the health of the application, and everything, so that it is having a predefined UI, like where we can check the endpoints of that particular application, like what is the status, how is the health of the application, and everything. And apart from this, like we can easily log it into our services using the loggers. So that is the second last, and last one is microservices support. Like it is best suited for the cloud native development also. Spring Boot versus traditional Spring. Like if you are using the Spring, so configuration like wise, we need to manually configure everything, but in Spring Boot it auto configured it. Server setup, it requires external Tomcat and Jetty server in Spring, whereas in Spring Boot we do not need to externally add the server. Everything will be taken care by the Spring Boot only. So it is having the embedded Tomcat server. Now this is development time. Like Spring, it is having the longer development time, as manual configuration, everything needs to be taken care by the developer, but in Spring Boot it is faster. Deployment wise, like Spring is having the complex war files, but in Spring Boot it is having the simple jar files. In microservices, like Spring requires additional setup as I mentioned, but Spring Boot is having the built-in support. So it is having a lot of advantage. So how Spring Boot works, it uses the Spring initializer for the project setup as I mentioned, and the main class, it contains the main method, is having @ Spring Boot application annotation. It uses the embedded server. Similarly, we can add the embedded database also. It auto configures dependencies based on the class part using the @ auto configuration which I mentioned. It requires minimum configuration needed for the common use cases. So this is how the Spring Boot works. Now, what we have concluded till now, that Spring Boot simplifies Java application development. It reduces setup and configuration type, best suited for modern web and microservices application, widely used in enterprises level and cloud-based applications. Like nowadays, product-based companies, as I mentioned, some of the product-based companies, they are mostly, if you are using the microservices like architecture, they are mostly going with the Spring Boot framework, not over the Spring. Like it is going using with the Spring Boot, that is having a lot of features as I mentioned. So this is the Spring Boot, you can say, and like this is the features you can explain if someone asks you. And like how you can use the Spring Boot, like using the Spring initialization and the basic hands-on by creating a simple web application, I will be covering in my next lecture of this series. So yeah, till that you can take care, and please subscribe and like my channel, and if any comments or any feedback is there, yeah, please provide it. And I will be covering most of the topics in my upcoming series, like Spring Boot web application, microservices, Apache Kafka, RESTful API, synchronous communication, asynchronous communication. So this will be the major content of my series. Like if someone is new and if it is not aware about like how it works internally, how we can create a simple application, so you can just easily go through my lectures and you will be getting it. And apart from this, in my last lectures, I covered the optional classes, string immutability concept. You can go through that also. Those are the most important questions also for the interview. And you should be aware about how internally works. So nowadays, like companies are looking for the guys who are like more confident in how the things internally works, not just providing the definition. It is looking, they are looking for how the internally works basically. Series. Yeah, that's all. So let's get started step by step, and it will be a every series will be having multiple videos of CRUD APIs. So basically, let's get started. And before that, like if you haven't liked, share and subscribe my channel, please like, share and subscribe my channel. And apart from this, like this, I have also made that Java interview series, Java 8 interview series, in which I have made like Java 8 interview coding questions. Apart from this, like other versions Java questions also are there, and lead code questions are there, and these are the some most asked interview questions. So please go and watch if you haven't, and please like, share and subscribe. So let's get started. And basically we will be making a simple CRUD application. Our main motive is there, using Spring Boot, S2 embedded database, JPA, Java persistence API, and Java 17 we will be taking as a version. And from the ID perspective, you can use the Eclipse ID also, or IntelliJ if you have. Both are like suitable for that. And apart from this, like as I mentioned in my introduction video of Spring Boot, that Spring Boot is very helpful for maintaining the production or creating the production ready applications. As using the Spring Boot, we don't focus on the these configuration files. We just need add dependencies, and rest Spring Boot, like it is having the feature of auto configuration, which will do that all the things. So nowadays most of the companies are using Spring Boot. If you go or if you work on the projects, so they are mainly for using the Spring Boot for their avoiding these configuration files and managing these things. So basically we will be, our main motive is that in this video I will be creating a simple Spring Boot web application, and our first Spring Boot application, or our first REST API. So let me tell you, REST stands for Representational State Transfer Protocol. It is a old template, And through REST APIs, it is having some certain HTTP methods like get is there, put is there, post is there, delete is there. So get is used for getting the object, post is for creating or saving the object into a DP, and then delete is there for deletion of the objects, and put is there which is used to update the resources. And apart from this four, we have other HTTP methods like patch is also there. So patch is used to update any part of that resource. So as of now, like I will not be making that or using the patch API, but I will be continuing with get, put, post, delete, this simple basic API. So CRUD stands for create, read, update or delete. So C stands for create API, which we will be doing using post API. Post API. Okay. And then read API, for as I mentioned, we have for read we are having the get, and for update API we are having the put API. Okay. And for delete API we are having the delete HTTP method, REST HTTP methods. And for these HTTP methods or REST HTTP methods, you can say that we are having some HTTP standards also, or some certain way of coding is required to write this code. So as I mentioned in my this video, I will be using the or creating a read API or our first Spring Boot application, how to create a Spring Boot application and how to get that particular API or get the data using the get call. So it's a simple one, so we will be doing that first from the starting. So nothing you have to do, you need to just search or type Spring Initializer on the Google and just click on the first link. Spring Initializer, there are various ways through which you can add or the dependency, or you can create a Spring Boot application, but we are using the Spring Initializer out of one way. And in this year you can see that we have it by default selected as Maven. If it is selected as Gradle, please select Maven, as we are creating the Maven project, not the Gradle one. Then in language we are using Java. Then by default it is selected some version, please select that one. Avoid using the snapshot versions, that these contain some dependencies error. And I have mentioned these some group and artifact and name of this application, as we are creating the CRUD application, so I have given the name as CRUD application. Then the demo project, this is the existing one, I have nothing changed. Then a group name and artifact name I have defined, so just copy that and define it, or as per your use you can define your own also. And packaging we'll be doing is jar, it is the default one. In Java version we have taken 17. So try to have Java at least 17 in your system, or sometimes in IDE also, like IntelliJ, it allows to download if you don't have once. So first dependency you need to add the Spring Boot web dependency, which is useful for creating the applications, and then the creating the MVC applications, you can say. Then we have the embedded database, which will be using the further videos. So H2 database I have added, and then we have the JPA one as of now. So JPA helps in interacting with the database. So in this we will be using any CRUD repository also. So that particular repository we will be using it, and so these dependencies, these three dependencies are fine as of now. And after this you can just generate the project, and it will generate the project once you click. And it will generate the project of like if you go it will generate the project of CRUD application .zip. Then you need to unzip and at your desired location, then you need to clone it, or you need to open that project or copy that project in IDE. So I have taken IntelliJ ID as of now, and I have imported it. Like after a successful imported, you can easily see that, you can see that application, main application will be given. This is the entry point of the any Spring Boot application. At the Spring Boot application, as I mentioned in my last video also, it is a combination of three annotations: at the configuration, at the enable auto configuration, at the component scan. So just run this application to see whether you have imported the project successfully and everything is working fine or not. Till it runs, what we will do, we will be creating our first Spring Boot application and our first get API. So for doing it, we will be creating one package, and that package name will be controller. That is the entry point of an application. Okay. Then in controller, what we will be doing, we will be creating our first REST controller. And that REST controller, what we can give the name, we can give demo controller, something like that. I have given the name, which will be doing the demo, or we can give the meaningful name more, CRUD operation controller. Okay, so it will create a Java class. Okay, and then you need to mark this first step. You need to do it, you need to mark it at the address controller. Then you need to create a first Spring Boot API or get API. So just public string get message, nothing you need to do, just return any string from your side. Return our first what we do in our Java program also, if we write the Java program, return hello world, and just mark it as at the rate get mapping hello. Okay, just control S, save it. Nothing I have to, just restarted the server. And by default this application runs on 8080. I will tell you how we can do or how we can change the port also in for my further video. Is it started? I started the application. So by default, okay, what happened? We need to write the URL is there, localhost 8080. Then further I have given the get mapping URL is hello/hello. So just hit it. See, if you are able to see, it is giving the hello world. So our first Spring Boot application has been created successfully. Nothing we have done, we have created our REST controller. At the REST controller, it is a combination of at response body and at controller. And then we have created our get mapping using at get mapping. And then this is a simple method is there, which is returning the string. So our first REST HTTP method get mapping is created, or our first application Spring Boot application is created. So that's it in this video, and I will be further explaining these annotations more in depth wise in my further video. Please try to create your form site and let me know if you have any doubts, any feedback in the comments, and please like, share and subscribe my channel. In this video I will be today covering the post API or the creation of a new resource, how you can create it basically. So for creating that, below are the few steps you need to take care of it. Like we need to implement a database connection, how you can connect to database directly. You cannot connect by adding the dependency. So how you can connect the database, like a to database we have added for the embedded database side. And apart from this, for implementing or for adding the our code to database or interacting our code to database, we are having the JPA. Like JPA stands for Java Persistence API, and it is a basically you can say that it acts as a bridge between our code and the database. So how it interacts with the database. And then another thing is that there are some DTO or POJO, if you have heard of it. Like directly we cannot interact if we interact with the help of the entity is a class which interact with the database, or which creates a table for that particular code. And but directly you cannot work on entity side, so we need to convert our entity to D2 or POJO, and then we can need to return the response as a D2 or POJO. So that's it is a good coding practice or clean code practice. We need to follow it, so that I will be following it. And so let's get started. And today, as I mentioned, we will be following or creating the post API, creation of the resource. In CRUD, we are C stands for creation of the resource. So that today we are continuing with that. So in my last video, if you have followed, we have created one CRUD operation controller and simple get API we have created and returning some message. But today we will be following with another one. Let's just a minute. Yeah, so basically in my last video I have created get API. So now we will create the post API. But this CRUD operation controller doesn't sound good. So let me refactor this. Refactor, rename it, and instead of CRUD operations controller, what we can give we will be creating one employee application. So for creating an employee application, simple application I'm creating it. So employee controller I've given its name. Okay. And why it is not reflecting? Okay, it is giving some error. Okay. Now we have created controller. We will create firstly some packages one by one. First package we required from controller, it goes to the service layer. Okay. Then from service layer, it goes to the repository layer for interacting with the database. Let me create one repository. Okay. Then directly we cannot return the entity response. So for that, What we'll be creating it, we'll be creating the DTO packages for that. Okay, then we have the DTO. Now we want the entity which interact with the database directly. So for that again we need one package, that is entity. Okay, DTO is there, entity is there, repository is there, service is there. Now what else we required? We required for conversion, we require some, like from DTO to entity or DTO to entity DTO, how we can convert. There is a utils package we are creating it for converting it. Okay, and that is done. Now next step is that, let me give the server port, server dot port. This is the way we can change our server port. Existing one is 8080, so I am giving 9093. Okay, then what we'll be doing, we will be adding some some properties of how we can interact with that database. So for that we are having that uh, spring.data source.username is there, and similarly password, URL, database URL is there, some properties are there. So to time save, I will just copy these properties. Will explain you one by one. Okay, so basically what this property is doing it, we are having the driver class name of h2 database org.h2.driver, first property. Then second property is that URL of the database you will be giving it. So we have given this jdbc h2 mem test db is the URL. Then username we have given sa. By default it is also sa, but we have kept the same, but password we have changed to test. Then we are having the spring.jpa.ddl auto update. So there are two things, one is create, one is update. So update is that every time you are doing in any operation or its server is getting started, so it will update that particular database. But in the case of create, it will create the table or the structure from initially point. So that is that thing, but we have kept the update. But this property will not much reflect in h2 database, as every time you will be starting the server, so all h2 database memory will be cleaned up. It is a memory in memory database, but it works properly in MySQL or relational or non relation databases. So this property, and this is a Spring h2 dot console dot enable to, means your h2 console will be enabled on the browser. Then we have the spring dot jpa dot so SQL true, means you will be able to see all the queries in your which will be firing, or which will be if you are inserting into table, so it will fire that query. Okay, now let me start creating one by one all the classes. We have established the connection. So for that we'll be in service class, we'll be creating employee service. Something, need to create the class, what it has been created. New Java class. I am keeping or making this videos as a short of 10 minutes only. So just like if it is a lengthy video, so it will be for you also, you will be not able to watch it as a single time. So that's why I've make these videos as 10 minutes only. And for repository it should be interface, so we will keep it as an interface employee repository, and it will extends JPA repository. JPA and CRUD, there are two types of repository. We are extending the JPA repository because it is having some more certain methods like sorting and everything is available. And here we need to give that entity class and its ID. So entity class is our employee. Let me create first that at the rate entity, to mark it that it is an entity. At the rate table is annotation is there, as we have kept an employee, but still for just for your knowledge I am again keeping the same name. At the rate table name, we can change the table name also using at the rate table. Then we are having private long ID, private string name. Then we will mark this as primary key, so @id is present. Then what we'll be doing it, we'll be adding first thing constructor. No argument constructor is required as we'll be creating object, so it will be required there. Then what we'll be doing it, we will be needing parameterized constructor, that also we will be adding it. Then we will be adding needing getter and setters. Okay, now what we'll be doing it, we have created entity class, so we'll be passing employee, and as we have kept the primary key as long data type, so we'll be passing the data type as long. Done. And we will be marking this as @repository, so compiler will know that this particular class is the repository class. And entity class is done. Now DTO, employee DTO will be creating it, and same fields which are there in entity class, we will be using the same fields just for conversion or for practicing the clean code practice. We are following this. So just for time saving, we will be copying this. Hello, hi all. So I'm continuing my same last video of post API creation of Spring Boot in series. So I have done the setup, this setup in my last video. So I'm continuing from the here only, like from employee DTO only. I will be creating it like firstly what I will be doing it, I will be creating the no argument constructor. Then what we'll be doing, we will be creating one argument constructor. Then as we have done in entity also, we will be creating the getter and setters. So this is done. Now the last thing is utils is left. So basically utils I have created for conversion of DTO to entity or entity to DTO. That's why now what we'll be doing it, we'll be defining one public static method, so it can be called with the help of the class name entity to DTO, and we'll be passing here entity. Imports we have done. Now we will be, what will be doing it, we will be creating one employee DTO object, and the return type also will be there of entity to DTO. Okay, new, will explain you. Firstly I'm writing the code. Basically for copying it, we are having the bean utils dot copy properties. We need to find source and destination. So source is employee, we need to, will be getting the properties, and our destination will be employee DTO. Then we will be returning the same employee DTO object. Let me now it will be DTO to entity, DTO to entity. I'm doing here fast because it is a simple conversion. Just try to understand it and let me know if you have any doubts. So basically where we will be passing the DTO object in this thing, and we need to have the employee object here. Entity object, okay, and the same entity object we'll be returning also. So source in this case is employee DTO properties, we need to copy it, and where we need to copy, we need to copy it entity, because we are converting from DTO to entity. This conversion is kept just to avoid the time, and it's a good coding practice. Basically we are copying it, and then what we are need to do, we will start from the employee controller. We will create a first post API now. So we will be give a generic URL for all the our APIs, and we will be mentioning, or we will be maintaining the versions also our API. It's again a good coding practice I'm following again. So just follow this v1 we have given. Suppose in future if anyone comes and try to define more employee controller, so he can give v2 version of employee controller. Okay, we have done at that v1, and now we will be for employee data, something like that, or data just. Okay, then control L, just format it. Now we will be creating the post mapping basically, and for that we will be using response entity as the return type, passing the employee DTO safe employee, and we'll be passing here the @request body. For always saving it, we will be using @request body, as we are passing the whole employee object, employee DTO object, not employee object directly we are passing, and employee DTO. Okay, then what we'll be doing it, we'll be returning return response entity dot status http status is there, dot created is there, dot body is there, and here we will be calling the service dot safe employee, and here we are passing the employee DTO object, and here we will be injecting the service class for calling it private employee service. Okay, and we will be, for injecting we are having the auto add. Okay, so this thing is done. Now we will go with the service class. Here only it will be giving the error. Just create the save employee method in employee service. Okay, and mark this class service, so everyone will be aware that it contains the business logic, and it works at the like it will works at the instead of component also, so that we can easily, we are injecting it. This save employee is there. Now we will inject employee repository repo, suppose we have given the name. Now for interaction we need to contact the repository, so we are auto wiring it, and now there is a plate that we need to convert this employee DTO to employee first. I have given the employee. Now we need to call this app utils dot, basically we need to convert DTO to entity, and we need to pass this employee DTO. This method which I have created, we need to call that. The import is missing, we need to do that. Now repo dot save method is there for saving it to DB, and emp we are passing it. But the thing is that we need to return the employee DTO only. So for that, app utils again we will be calling an entity to DTO, and this thing will return the entity only after saving. The same object it will return it. So we are just directly calling here only. We'll explain you. I have like for emitting the lines I have done this thing, but I will explain you once I am able to run the code, then I will explain you. Okay, so this thing is done. Now we will run our application, basically CRUD application. Okay, few things are missing. I forgot this employee entity we have marked. There is @ generated value for ID. So it will generate the id. As of now we are taking the strategy or identity, anything we can take. So strategy equals to, we are taking generation type dot sequence. In sequence it will be generating the id by default on its own. Let me restart the server. Till that we can open our postman, and our code is 9093, and our url is save employee. Or what is the url? The url is, okay, we haven't in a hurry, we have missed this. uh, Save employee, just again restart it. So url is given. Now copy this at the rate request mapping url slash v1 slash data slash save employee till the application gets started. Okay, it got started. So id will be auto generated. Name we have given in body as Mohit. Let me send it. See here, id we are getting 1 and name is Mohit. Id is generated auto default. We'll explain more in the further session. That's it. Thanks. Please like, share, and subscribe my channel. The Spring Boot concept and how a Spring Boot application is being created. Please go and watch it. And before that, like, if you haven't like, share, and subscribe my channel, please like, share, and subscribe my channel. So let's get started. So as you can see, I have created this post mapping of save employee. So in this video I will be explaining you like what is happening in the background, and then I will try to create the get API also, like what we are saving it. So so let me add some more data. Like Mohit we have added, and the id is Ram. Id is 1. Suppose Ram is there, and now we will do 2. Okay, so see, id is auto getting generated because we have kept the generation type as sequence. Okay, so let me explain you basically what I have done here. From the controller layer I will explain. Okay, just me. So in controller I've created one REST controller, as we have created earlier also. And benefit, you know that at the rate response body plus at the rate controller, it contain both. And every time like the response which we are getting it, so it will automatically convert into the JSON type format. And then we have given a generic URL of at the rate request mapping slash v1 slash data. And this will helps in versioning also. Like suppose in future if someone else get to work on this project, and if someone wants to create a new employee controller, so he can give a version as v2 for that. So then we have created post mapping. This we can create, delete also, or remove also, or comment. So we will delete as of now. And in post mapping we have given slash save employee. Response entity of employee DTO is the return type. We have defined DTO and entities, and we have defined the app utils for conversions between the DTO and the entities. Then save employee, we are saving that employee at the request body, and in this body we are passing the whole employee object. Then we are returning it response entity dot status http status dot created, means this resource will be created. And in body we are returning the response of this service dot save employee DTO we are passing it. So let me go through the service class. In service class we are auto wiring the repository one, because we repository, with the help of the repository only we are interacting with the database. And in employee repository, if you go it, so we are extending the JPA repository so that it can extend the JPA repository, so that it can use the methods of the JPA, which is having the find by ID, save, sorting. Some certain methods are there inside the JPA repository, and this is the rule. And in JPA repository we are passing that entity class employee, and that ID is defined as longs, so that we are passing it. That in service class what we are doing, we are converting this DTO to entity, and we are getting the employee object. Then we are calling repository dot save and passing this entity object, and we are getting the response as entity only, but we want the return type of DTO, so we are converting app utils dot entity dot DTO, and we are getting the employee DTO object, and that we are returning it. Simple program is there. Nothing is there. In application properties, we have defined the simple properties of S2 database: URL like username, password, and this enable like and this show SQL. If you see it, every time we are firing that insert or this sending that response body as name Ram, so it is inserting into the employee table and this showing the queries also. So that is the benefit of spring.jpa.showSQL. So now what we will do, we will create the get mapping for this public response entity, and we will be getting the employee DTO only. Okay, get all employees, nothing we need to pass, not path variable, neither request body is required. Then return response entity dot status. Here we need to return the status as okay, like if we are getting the data, so we will be returning as okay, stdb status dot okay dot body service dot get all employees. Okay, now just we need to annotate at the rate get mapping, and we can give the general URL. Get all data control alt al, so that we have formatted the code. Now what we will do, we will just create the method as get employees. Here in the service class it will create it. Then what we will be doing it, we need to fetch repo dot find all, and basically one more thing we need to take care, that it will return the list of employee. This we need to take care of it. Okay, repo dot find all, it will return the list of employee entity, but we want it to return it. Okay, directly we can return it app utils entity to TTO. What is the error? Okay, where is the controller? Wrong method we have chosen, not this one. Basically we need to return the list here. Okay, so we will be fetching all the data here, and here this is the post mapping, this is the get mapping we are doing, getting or fetching all the data. Now what we will be doing it, we will be just restarting the server. Some error is there we are getting. What is the error? Java missing return statement. Return statement we were missing. Okay, it is we didn't provided the terminal operations. Like actually here we are using the Java 8 collectors dot to list. Okay, I will explain you this. I have done via Java 8. Like earlier we were creating the object and manually we were doing, so now this time I have tried to do using the Java 8, because nowadays everywhere we are using the Java 8, and you can see in a single line everything is done. We'll explain you what I'm doing in the packet. Okay, application got started. Now what we will be doing it, we will send the data. Okay, so that it can return the list of employees. 3 employees, like 3 employees has been added. Now we need to fetch it basically. So this is the get mapping we need to set, and okay, get mapping, and the URL we have set here, basically get all data. So the same URL we need to paste it after that generic URL. Instead of save employee, it will be get all data, and nothing we need to pass in the headers or body, as it is a get mapping and nothing is required. Say we are getting all the list of employees, like first is Ram, second is Rama, third is Sham. Just okay, see here, it is also showing the data also. Was first we have inserted, now we are firing the query select event.id event.name from employee event, so we are getting all the data. In backend nothing we have done, we are just returning the list of employee of DTO, and in service class we are just doing repository.find all, which will return the list of employees of entity, and then we are streaming this list, and then we are using map, we are converting dot entity dot dto, then we are further collecting to collectors dot to list. It is simple one. So we'll try to, in the next video we'll try to convert this also in Java. Okay, it is a simple method. Nothing we have done, just we have done the CRUD application, in which I have covered the update part by covering the post API, how you can create the post API or saving the employee, you can see. And apart from this, like for not for updating, sorry, for create purpose I've used this save a employee or the post mapping, you can say. And for read purpose we have created get all data, or getting all the employees from that DB. We have used the embedded S2 database, and embedded Tomcat server is there, which is inbuilt. And apart from this, like now what we'll be doing in this video, we will be creating one more read API, but this API will be reading based on that either path variable we can use, or either request param. So just have a difference between at the rate request param and at the rate path variable. Two things are there, two annotations. So at the rate request param is used for the optional dependencies. Like in the URL, you can pass the dependency or you cannot pass it. Like based on that, you can set the required properties there while defining that annotation, false or true. And at the rate path variable, basically you can pass it, and it is a mandatory parameter you need to pass into the URL. So we will be try to use set the rate path variable in this video first. So let me start with writing the code of the get API of finding by ID. Like ID will be passed by the user in the URL, and you need to return the data of that particular employee. So in this case we will be needing employee DTO, then get employee by ID, and here we will be passing that at the rate path variable, and our ID is long, suppose ID. Then we need to map it at the rate get mapping URL, and then we need to give, or just directly give it what is that particular ID is there. Okay, its name is ID. So this is the path variable. Now return response entity, okay, dot status. First thing we will be checking the status, http status dot ok dot body. As of now, like we are keeping the status okay, but once I will implement the exception in this, so we will check the status on that, whether we are getting the response or not, and then we will be setting the status based on that. Service dot get employee by ID, okay. And here what will be doing it, just me format the code, we'll be passing the ID here. Now this controller part is done. Now one more thing, like this service method is not there, so we will create this get employee by ID here. And then what we'll be doing, return repo dot find by ID is the method name, and you need to pass that particular ID, okay. Then it will be returning the entity thing, okay. Now the thing is that we need to map it to the entity to DTO. So we will use Java 8 again, app utils entity to DTO. What happened? It will return the it will return the optional data. This thing we need to take care. Get dot map. Why it is giving the error? It was returning the optional data. Required type of DTO, that is fine. Okay, it is returning the optional data and our code is employee DTO. So somehow we need to will get that particular method. Dot map. Let me try with dot map. Then what we can do, we can here it works with the get, so it will get the employee DTO. Okay, I will explain you what was happening, why it was giving there, and how I fixed it. Let me format this code and let me first run it. Let me start our application first. Application, our main application we need to start. And till that, firstly we need to save the data, because it is embedded Tomcat. So every time when the server is started, so S2 database memory is getting deleted. So we need to save or the data, then we will be calling the get by ID. It started. Let me send some few ID, some data. Then we have suppose John. Okay, to ID, then Jacob. Okay, now this was the get all data, which will be fetching all the employees. Here it is coming all employees. Now our third API URL is that basically will be need to pass that ID in the URL. Instead of get all data, just pass one. So here it is working like a single employee data is coming, like ID whose ID is 1, it is returning the data. Similarly, now I will pass that employee ID as 3, it is returning Jacob, what we have sent here. Okay, so let me explain you basically what is happening in the background. We have defined one more get mapping, and this get mapping is that get employee by ID. And in get employee by ID, I have used again response entity, and in employee DTO I have taken the return type, and we are setting the status as HTTP status.ok, and we are calling the service method inside the body of get employee by ID. And here you can see that we are just using the repository.find by ID. Then we are mapping into app utils conversion. Basically we are doing it using the Java 8 entity DTO, and then we are calling the get method because it was returning the optional data. And earlier what I was doing the mistake that I was calling the get here, so it was failing, and like it was not able to convert it properly, it was giving the error. So that's why at the last we need to get that particular data, so it will return the after conversion of employee DTO, it is optional of employee DTO. Then at the end we are calling get, and then we are doing that. But this is also partially correct, because get sometimes if the data is not present, it throws the null pointer exception. So to avoid that, we need to return some alternate value, or we need to surround with that exception handling, try catch. So as of now, like exception handling, we are not taking care. We at the last I will be implementing it, but just try to understand what is happening in the background. See here all the queries you are able to see here in your console. So please like try to do some hands-on from your side also. Just don't watch it these videos, otherwise it will be wasteful. And so just do the hands-on from your own side, and please let me know if you have any doubts, any suggestions in the feedback or in the comment section. And apart from this, like I've covered till now, get API, get by ID I've covered, saving the data. Now in my next video I'll be covering the updation of the data, put API basically, and at the last we'll be covering the delete there. So our CRUD application will be total created, like create, read, update, delete. All the four operations will be done in a single application. It's a simple code. If you see it, nothing is hard and fast. Just try to understand it, and please like, share, and subscribe my channel, and try to learn the things. We have created a CRUD application in which out of we have created a create application operation doing using the post mapping of saving the employee. Basically, we are creating the employee CRUD application. Then for reading it, we are creating two get mappings, one for getting or fetching all the list of employees, and second for fetching the employee by ID. Based on the ID, we will be fetching the data using at the rate path variable, which is a mandatory dependency. So till now these things we have done. Now like today what we will be doing in this lecture, we will be like create is done, read is done. Now U stands for update. So today we will be learning or studying the put mapping, at the rate put mapping basically. And simply we will be using at the rate put mapping annotation. Then what we'll be doing it, we will be passing at the rate slash update slash, and here for updating it we should be passing the ID also as a path variable. So let me write first public response entity, and the return type will be of employee DTU. Okay, and the method name will be of update employee at the rate path variable long id we need to pass, for which employee we need to update it. Then along with it we need to pass at the rate request body employee DTO and employee DTO whole object. Two things we are passing. Sometimes we can do with the using this employee object also, we can just check whether this data is present or not with the help of the ID, and then we can update it. Or simply this is the good practice that we are passing the ID also. Firstly we will check from this ID if the data is present. If it is present, then we are updating it along with that body. So that is our approach. Return response entity dot status http status dot ok. Okay, and then dot body service dot update employee. We need to create this method in service class, and then we need to pass here two things, ID comma employee DTO. Okay, so this thing is done of controller thing, we have done it. Now we need to create this update employee method in service class. Okay, now what we will be doing it, firstly this thing we were doing using the Java, but in this like using Java it is it will be very complex. Or otherwise we, if we are aware about reactive programming, so through reactive programming using mono or mono of employee of DTO object, mono is or flux, two things are there in reactive programming. So using that we can easily do it using Java. But as of now, like I'm will be doing simple way. So what will I will be doing it, I will be just try to fetch the data of entity using the ID employee. Okay, and repo dot find by ID, and here we will be pass the ID. Okay, why it is giving the error? Okay, it is optional, it will be giving the optional value, so just pass the get method of as of now. But this can throw the exception. We will try to implement the exception in my next lecture or further. As of now, like I have used the get method directly, but this is not a good practice. So we have got the employee, and now we are having the employee DTO. So what we can do, we can just try to convert this employee DTO also into employee object only. Updated obj equals to, and this we have app utils dot DTO to entity employee DTO. Okay, so it will convert this into entity object of employee, and one employee object we have got using the ID. So we need to just update this object with that object. The concept is that. Okay, trying to do in some sorted manner. Okay, as of now we let us do with this way only. If employee dot get ID does not equals null, then what we'll be doing it, we will be just updating the data of the employee dot set ID updated object we should take. Okay, then employee dot set ID, inside that we will be passing the updated object which we are trying to update, suppose. Then again, if updated object dot get name does not equal nulls, so what we will be doing it, we will be updating this entity which we have got using the find by id dot set, now this time name, and inside that we will be passing the updated value dot get name. Okay, now we are got these updated values in this employee object. Now what we'll be doing it, we'll be just trying to save it, repo dot save. So save method to do the two things. If this employee object anyway somehow it is not present, so it will just update, or it will just create a that thing. That is the advantage of, but in this case we are fetching it by using the id, so it will be present in this case. But in most of the cases we use the save method. If the object is not present anyhow, this employee whole object, then it will just save it inside this or create a new one. Okay, you can say, and this will return an entity, but we want utils. Achha, okay, it will return, it will not directly using save, it will not stream it. I guess we have done this thing here, but as we don't have that map method, because it is not mono or something like that, so again we need to create uh, saved object. Okay, we have got this thing of entity type. Then what we'll be doing it, we'll be returning app utils dot entity to DTO saved object. This thing is complex, where we will try to sort this thing, how we can more you sort it. So this is done. Now controller class is done, service class is done. Now we should start the application. Our controller URL is update id. So let me open. First thing is we need to save the data, then we need to update it. Started CRUD application. Okay, so what we'll be doing it, we'll be saving the data. Here's body. So one, then John, 2 is done. Now what we'll be doing it, we will be updating it. slash id we can pass it 1, and name of 2 is suppose John. Suppose 2 is we are updating John is there, so we are updating as Jenny. So here it is updated as Jenny. Now for 2, if you fetch the data, it will be coming as Jenny. So that's it in this lecture. In next lecture we will open. Hello all. So in my last lecture I was covering about the put mapping, how we can have the updation of the record inside the CRUD application of employee 1, and here basically we are passing at the path variable, and we are passing this whole employee object of DTO type, as we are not aware of which employees values this user wants to update it. So we are passing the whole object, and then one by one we are updating it in the old object. Means we are firstly getting the or fetching find by id method of we are fetching this database record using this id, or then after that what we are doing it, we are just trying to convert this d2 object into entity, and then one by one we are just setting it inside this database record the updated values which user wanted, and then further we are saving it, and then after that what we are doing it, we are just converting into entity d2 and then returning it. Or what we else we can do here, dot or else throw is there. Directly we can throw an exception over here also. New entity something, new runtime exception, given id records not found. So this is will be a must suitable. If you have watched my optional video, so I've covered this dot or else throw there, so please go and watch it. So here what it will do, it will fetch the data if the id is being present in the database. Otherwise what it will do, it will throw that dot or else throw exception. We can throw it using this method of optional, and it will return the statement given id records not found. Okay, so what we can do, let me show you firstly the database thing. So this is our 903 particular server port what we have set. Now s2 console is the database url. Okay, and here if you go it, we are setting the password also. So we have set the password as test, and let me connect this as username is same employee. Let me run this query. So here Jacob and Jenny is there. Okay, let me update this value. Okay, what we were doing, we were doing the put mapping. Suppose what happened? Okay, my mistake, I'm trying to add it into console. So suppose we are updating the value of the two IDs. We have seen it is Jenny, but now we are sending or updating as Tom. Let me refresh it. See here, now it is been updated to Tom because we have here called the put mapping here. Now we want to delete this record. Basically if you go through the project requirement, sometimes this delete option is kept to a soft delete, because so there may they mark the flags like whether they want that particular entity to be deleted as a soft delete or how. So but here we will be deleting it from the database directly, slash delete. Here also we need to pass this path variable id. This is the mandatory one, so we are passing as the mandatory one. Response entity employee dto delete employee at the rate path variable long id okay, return response entity dot okay, record deleted successfully, something like that. Directly we get as a it will not return anything, so we are just returning, okay, inside we are not returning any object because we are directly deleting it, so we will return the message here. That will be more meaningful. And here we need to call this particular service class method, service dot delete employee, and we need to pass this id. Okay, control alt L, it is formatted. Now let me uh, create the create this method basically in the service class. So this method has been created. Now what will be doing it? Firstly we will be fetching it whether this particular report dot find by id, if this id is being present or not, dot, or else we are throwing the same exception. Okay, now what will we getting it? We will be getting the employee object here. Okay, now repo dot, we will be deleting, delete by id is also fine. So we can delete by id or delete we as we have got the whole object also, so we can get it, but let me do it with the id only, so it will delete it. If this particular id data is not been found, so directly it will throw the exception and this thing will not work, and otherwise it will be deleting this. So that is our core logic as of now. Okay, now let me restart the application. First thing is that we want particular post mapping and we want to save the data. As we have started it, so it will try to, again we need to call it. So on first it was Jacob, and okay, my mistake, the URL is different and we are calling the post mapping there. So save employee, just call this save employee. Jacob is one. Now second was Tom, again we need to call it. So second is Tom. Now we want to delete it basically. Let me copy this URL, and the URL is that we need to pass the slash delete slash id slash id. And for Tom, in our database, if we are fetching this query, okay, we need to connect it. Just try run this on your side also, it is very simple. Just click on this employer, run this query, it will show on second it is Tom. We want to delete the Tom only. Okay, and it is delete. Let me send this. Record deleted successfully. Again if I send it, so it is giving internal server error path this exception. What it is throwing it, we need to handle this exception. It is throwing this runtime exception. If you show it, given id records not found. So what we can do it, we can throw some custom message here also, and then also it can work, but as of now it works here. But we can more customize it when we are doing the exception handling in this. For giving a user experience, for internal server error, the particular error message should be there, the custom error message. That will be a good impact. So as of now, like what we have done, we have created a simple CRUD application without any exception handling as of now. And for getting the data, we are for reading the data, we are having two things: get all data, get by id data. And for saving or for creation purpose, we are having the save employee. For updation purpose, we are having slash update slash id based on the path variable of we are updating it, and slash delete slash id, we are having that particular based on the id. Firstly it will check if that particular data has been present or not, otherwise it will throw the exception, and second thing, then it will delete the data. That simple thing we have done. Just go through this whole code. I will put this till now, this code I will put in my GitHub profile, and then I will paste the URL in the description. Please go and watch it. And before that, like if you haven't liked, share and subscribe to my channel, please like, share and subscribe my channel. And this is the S2 database configuration. We have done it, and given the application name, it is already being given. Server port, we have changed it, and other things you are aware about it. So just please go through this code also if you stuck, and please let me know in the comments. So please like, share and subscribe, which I have created earlier. So in that video till now, like we have created a simple CRUD application comprising of like create operation, read operation, update operation, and delete operation, with a simple controller service layer, including the JPA also we have included with the entity and everything we have done, and repository class also we are extending the JPA repository, and the basic like versioning also we have done till now. Like I will put this code in my GitHub. Till now, like I haven't put it, but I will just put it in my GitHub. But the next question comes, like earlier also I've mentioned that exception handling is also a part of a good application. Like if you are creating a good application with the proper following the solid principles and clean coding writing practice, along with writing the unit test cases, so then you need to handle the exceptions also properly. So for that, like earlier we used to do manually by you writing the try catch in each and every like this method also, and then again method also. So we will avoid this approach. Like nowadays, most of the application or most of the projects is specific requirements are that they uses the Java 8. So through Java 8, we can easily throw the exception using the dot or else throw. And for that, we have the options like we can create a global exception handler class, and in using at the rate controller advice annotation, and then we can have that methods defined or our custom exceptions defined, and using at the rate exception handler on that particular method. So through that class we can handle all the exceptions or our custom exceptions also, we can write it in that global exception handler class, and then we can directly call it here. So suppose here we are like throwing the new runtime exception when the ID is not found, or suppose that the ID data is not being present in the database. So we are throwing the new runtime exception. So instead of that, what we will do, like I have created one exception folder here, exception package. Same view also you can create it, and then what we will be doing it, we will be creating our custom exception first, custom exception class. So in that way you will be learning two things. Like if you are not aware about how to write the custom exceptions, so that also I will be telling you firstly. So suppose we want to throw some exception, like if the database ID is not present or database records are not present in the S2 database, so then what we can do, we can throw some custom exception of employee not found exception. Suppose employee not found exception, and this is the class. Okay, and then what we can do it, we can this for creating the custom exception, it will extend the runtime exception, as it is a unchecked exception. These custom exceptions comes under the unchecked exception, so it will extend its parent class, which is runtime exception. Then we will create one constructor. This is the method, or this is the logic for writing the custom exception. If you are not aware of employee not found exception constructor, we will be creating it. In this we will be passing the message what we want to throw through the user and user, and then we will be simply calling the super keyword to call this message. That's it. So through this way you can easily write the custom exception. What is the error it is throwing? Okay, so okay, leave it as of now. Runtime exception, as just we have created this custom exception. So what I was telling you, that this custom exception has been created by extending runtime exception and this constructor, and we are calling this message using the super keyword. Now we will create one global exception handler class. Name it as global exception handler. Okay, this class. And then what we'll be doing it here, we'll be annotating this class at the rate controller advice, so that compiler will be aware that this is a global exception handler class. Then what we'll be doing it, we will be writing one custom method for our handling this custom exception what we have written it. So for that we have as I'm using the response entity, the same I will be using it, and it will be generic type as we are not sure like what is the return type. So to avoid that we will be writing it as a generic type, handle employee not found exception. Okay, and then inside that what we can do, we can just call that particular class employee not found exception ex, suppose object we have called it. And one more annotation is required here, exception handler, and inside this we will be passing employee handler employee not found dot exception dot class. Okay, this thing is done. Now what we will be doing it, we will be creating one map of string as a key and object as a value, error, suppose I have given the name new hash map. Then okay, then what we'll be doing it, error dot put, and inside that suppose we are passing the timestamp, like at what time this exception has been occurred, and local date time dot now, it will pass the current date time using the local date time, and then error dot put, and here we will be passing the message, what message we need to pass or throw that particular exception, ex dot get, sorry, ex dot get message. Okay, then error dot put, and here we will be passing the status also, and ex dot get status there. Okay, don't have the status one. Acha, okay, directly we can http status dot not found. And we will be just passing the value here as it is of object type. Then what we'll be doing it, we will be returning this error using the response entity, return new response entity, and error comma http status dot not found. Done here. See here, it's just simple, like nothing I have done. Now we will be calling or we will be throwing this exception everywhere in the service class. Instead of this we will be throwing employee not found exception. And one more thing we can do, we can just add the id here also, like what id the data was not found. Then delete is done. Then we have the update one. Similarly in update also we will do the same thing. Instead of throwing the runtime exception, we are throwing our own custom exception. And here also, like get employee by id is the method. So here also what we'll be doing it, dot or else throw new employee not found exception given records not found, something like that, then id. Yeah, done. So now we can just restart our application and just show you a demo. Till that we can copy the url one of that. What is the id for slash v1 slash data slash id is there. So instead of this post, just call the get, and suppose initially we don't have any data because we here in initially there is no data present. So what it will do, it should throw an exception, like inside the get id we are throwing the exception, like if the data is not present, so it should throw the exception properly. Okay, and Is the application started? Yeah, application is started. Now we can just call that method. See, proper exception is being thrown here, and with the message with the time stamp, current, and the status. So this how. Hello all. So I'm back with another video of Spring Boot series, and basically in my last video we have covered till the exception handling, like how we can make the our application as more secure, or how we can avoid the errors or exceptions. So for that we have created in our last video as global exception handler class using at the rate controller advice and at the rate exception handler, and then using the method of optional class or dot or else throw, we have thrown that particular exception, our custom exception we have created that. So just a quick revisit. We have created our CRUD application. In this, like we have created CRUD operations related APIs, like REST APIs. Basically, we have created it in the controller. If I go with simple get API for getting all the data, for get mapping API for getting the employee data, or get a particular API for by the ID perspective using at the path variable. Then we are having the we have created the post mapping or post API for saving or creating the data in the database. Then we have created a put mapping or put API for updating the data into the database. And then we have created a delete API for deleting the data into the database. And for the database perspective, we have integrated or embedded that data of S2 database. We are using it, and we have define all the properties into the application.properties file for database connection, and server.port we have changed it. Then apart from this, like we have used the JPA repository for performing this CRUD operations. Like we have extended the JPA repository. We have created one interface of employee repository which is extending the JPA repository interface, and inside that we have passed this employee class as an entity and passed the primary key data type. And then we have created like employed entity, and at the rate id, at the rate table, and at the rate entity, so that we can interact with the database, like our code how it will interact with the database table. So for that we have created this at the rate entity. Then what we have done, it we have like created one DTO, so that we can easily convert from entity to DTO and DTO to entity. And for that we have created app.utils. Like inside utils package we have created app utils, and inside that we are copying the properties using the bean utils.properties. So till that we have done, and apart from this, like we have created one global exception handler class, and inside that we have created one employee.not found exception for the custom exception. We have created that, and then inside that we have defined our own custom hash map of error, and then we are returning it, so that when we are throwing that particular exception, so that it will throw the timestamp, the custom message and everything. So that's a good coding practice. Now the another thing is that today we will be covering the unit testing, like how we can write the unit test cases also. This is another important perspective while making an application. So that what we will be doing, it we are having the test folder, if you can see. So inside that it has already given the CRUD application test. So we will not touch this. We will create our own service test class on the naming, same naming convention within, like employee service is there. So similar way we will be creating it employee service test class, and using JUnit 5 and Mockito we will be writing the unit test cases one by one. And before that, like if you haven't liked, share and subscribe my channel, please like, share and subscribe my channel. So employee service test, okay, this class we have created it. And now what we'll be doing, it we'll be writing the test for one by one each service method. And for that what we'll be taking, we'll be using the Mockito framework. For that we'll be mocking the repository bean inside that, or injecting the repository bean into the service bean. So we are having the repository bean name as employee repository. Repo, okay. And this thing we will be using at the rate mock is the annotation. And now what we'll be doing, just maximize me. So private employee service, we'll be creating it. Service is the class, okay. Then here we'll be using the at the rate inject mocks. So basically what it is doing it, we will be injecting this repository bean inside this service class. So whenever we are calling the service method service.get find by id, so internally it will be calling the repo.find by id. So that will not be shown directly, like I will tell you the way like how we are doing that way also. So for now let me write one test case, like suppose public void get employee. Okay, let me copy the same exact name. I am taking this name only, like instead of get all employees, firstly I am writing the test case for get employee by id, simple one. And just write the test for that. And before each and every method you need to write at the rate test annotation, so that it will be aware that it is a test one. And just wanted to tell a quick difference between JUnit 4 and JUnit 5, that JUnit 4 runs on like below Java 8 versions, and JUnit 5 runs on Java 8 versions. And some method names are different in JUnit 4 and JUnit 5, but JUnit 5 supports both JUnit 4 test also and JUnit 5 test also. Now one more method is there, we need to do the quick setup. Public void setup, and this we will be annotating with at the rate before each. Okay, and private employee this object we are taking it as a dummy one, so that what happened, why it is giving the error. Okay. Employee, then emp we are having the constructor, so directly we can do the initialization, and we'll pass the some dummy data. Suppose 1l is the id, and then Mohan is the name, and Mockito annotations dot open mocks, so that it will inject the repository. This is the way, that's why we uses this Mockito annotations dot open mocks, and we have an initialize one employee constructor, and the use of @ before each it, that for each and every test case it will initialize this employee, and this employee object we can use inside a test case what we are writing it. So that's why we have done this setup. Now what we'll be doing it, we will be defining one long id equals to 1 l. Okay, then when is a method service dot not service, we will be calling repository dot find by id, where we will be passing the id. Then okay, we need to import that starting method, then we need to return, then return this employee what we have initialized in the before each. Okay, then what we'll be doing it, we will be calling the service method, and for that it is employee dto type, the return type of service. So internally it will do using the app do utils, and the result equals to service dot find by id. What happened, acha, get employee by id is there, id, so it will get the result. And then what we will be doing it, we will be checking assert not null is the result are. Okay, then something it is not picking up, leave assert not null, let me assert equals, and then we can just pass the name as Mohan was the name, then result dot get name, it will verify it. Just quick I am writing it so that we at least we can run the test case, this one. Okay, then this will be returning optional, so we need to wrap it with the optional. And then verify is the method, verify repo dot find by id, and we need to pass this verify is being called, that this particular method is being called. Let me run this test case. Will explain you like what is happening in my next video.
Hey guys, so till now what we have covered, we have created the CRUD application, then we have created the test cases, and in my last video we have covered the unit test case, get employee by ID test. Now today what we will be covering, we will be covering rest of the test cases we need to write for other CRUD applications, and apart from this we will be covering some negative scenarios. As of now, like we are covering the positive scenarios, but we will be covering the negative scenarios as well. So till now this has been covered, get employee by ID, and now what we need to cover, we need to write the next test case. Okay, so here what we'll be doing it, public void get all employees test, then here we need to annotate at the rate test so that it can be run as a unit test. Then what we need to do when, so in get all by employees, what we are doing, the repository is calling the find all. So similar way we need to do it when, as repository has been mocked, so repository dot find all is there, then return as it is list. So we will be returning the list of the employee object which has been declared earlier, that we are returning here this employee object which has been set up in before each test case annotation. So that list we are returning it, and now what we will be doing it, we will be calling employee, inside DTO we will be declaring result service dot get all employees, directly we'll be calling it. And if that is the case, then assert equals, and then we'll be checking the size of that particular list what we are getting after mock. Okay, here we are doing one mistake here. So list, we need to declare it as we are declaring or getting the list as a return type. So that particular list we are checking in assert equals. Now we will check the object assert equals. Then what we need to check, so in expected we are having the id as 98L and the name is Mohan. So Mohan is the name, then result dot get 0 first index as a single employee object exists in the list dot get name. Okay, these two asserts are fine. Now we will be calling the verify method, verify repository dot find all. Yeah, so this is there. Now we will run this test case. See here, so all the test cases has been passed of this particular, like assert equals 1 is there, so the expected is 1, and the result of list is also sizes 1 only, and assert equals name we are checking, and then we are calling the repo, and then find all method has been. So now till now what we have covered, get employee by id we have covered, then get all employees test we have covered. Now we need to cover the save one. Get one is done, now save one we will cover. Now we need to cover the save part. So save employee test. It is a good practice that to always keep the same method names what we have written in the CRUD application. Annotate at the rate test on this. Then when repository dot save method is calling this, but the thing is that, okay, let us call that as we are using the entity app utils.entity, so it might fail. Let us check what is the error we are getting it. Then return employee, and here we need to call the service layer result equals to service dot save employee method, but here we need to pass the DTO object, not the employee, because in the actual code what we are doing, we are calling or passing the employee DTO object. Suppose DTO is the name, new employee DTO, and here what we need to pass it, 98L is the dummy data we have taken, and Mohan. Okay, and now here we will pass the DTO. So internally it will convert to entity, and then it will call the repo, and then it will save it. This is what we are expecting. Assert equals, and just check the name. Okay, what is there? uh, so result dot get name. Now check the ID also, as it is a single object. So 98 long type comma result get ID. Okay, then verify repository dot save employee method is being called or not, save. And then here what we are passing it, we are passing the emp employee object. Let us run this test case and see what is happening behind it. See here, this test case has been failed. If I show you the error, source must not be null, illegal argument exception we are getting it. So why we are getting this exception? Just think about it. Why, what we have done wrong here is that this test case is failing, because we everything as per that we are doing right, because we are creating one new DTO object, and then we are saving it that DTO object, and apart from this, when repository dot save employee is calling, then we are passing that or mocking that particular employee object also, what we have declared before each, that entity object. So what is the wrong thing here? Why it is saying that source must not be null? Because the thing is that when what we have done here, if I go here in save employee method, we are calling app.utils.dto.entity to entity, and this employee DTO has been converted into the employee entity object. So when it converts, so it converts into a new employee object, and that new employee object has been getting saved into repository. So that's why when it is there, so this employee object is the same what we are declaring or in there here, right? We are mocking it actually, and that employee object only we are passing it to get saved when when this particular service method is calling. So then this same object needs to be saved. So that's why we are getting so that's why we are getting this illegal argument exception, or the source must not be null. So this is the scenario. So how to fix this? We need to tell this while mocking it, that whenever we are getting any employee entity object, so there is argument matchers as of now for fixing here, for temporary fix, or for project fix also it is fine. But if someone or interviewer asks, then you need to mock that app utils also, then only you can further call that particular. Okay, so app argument matches dot any, and inside this you need to pass the employee dot get class. Okay, similarly here also, whenever we are passing directly that, when verifying it, that particular method has been called or not, then also we need to argument matches dot any, and inside that we need to pass the employee dot class. So this argument matches dot any, what it does, that it tells that when while mocking it or while calling the method, that this any type of employee object is accepted here, and whenever this you are getting this any type of employee entity object, then you need to return this object only. So this is the scenario, and this how we are fixing this. Now it will get passed. See here, one test is passed. Okay, so this is the save one. Now quickly format it. Yeah, so now we will do it for the update one also. Public update one also same scenario will come because we are converting it, right? Update employee test, and then annotate at the rate test here. Just copy here this thing because the same logic will be implemented here also, but few changes are there. Let me tell you. So whenever we are passing any employee object, then you need to pass the updated value, right? As we are doing the some updation purpose. So as of now, what we will do it, we will pass the same ID here. As ID we are not updating, as ID is the primary key, so we should not update it. But now we will change the updated name. Name will be updated from Mohan to updated name. So this is done. Now, okay. Now what we'll be doing it, we will be calling that employee DTO result service dot update employee, pass the DTO object here, as internally it will convert to entity object. Then what we'll be doing it, we will be checking the assert equals 98L comma, and that particular ID also we need to check, as ID will not be changed, but still we are checking it. This is not the requirement because ID is not a, needs to update, right? Then we need to pass that particular name what we have updated to that, whether it has been updated to same or not. Okay, then result dot get name, so name has been updated. Then call verify method to verify whether this particular method has been called or not. Repository dot update. Okay, save is there, right? In repository we are calling the save, and then argument matches again dot any, then pass the employee class. This you might have got it right, because as I told, we are converting to entity to app utils dot dq to entity, so it creates a new object every time. But we are here, we are passing the same object, so it's why that's why it's failing. To fix this, we have tell that we need to pass the any object, but somehow it is still failing here. If anything else we have done the wrong, result dot get id is there, we are passing the update employee is there. Something we have done the mistake here, argument matches dot employee, then we are returning the 98L update employee. Let us check the error, what is we are getting it. Okay, employee not found with id, it is saying. Acha, okay, we are getting the valid output because in update we are checking one more thing here. Employee not found exception. Basically, that particular when we have written the update code, right? You remember that we are checking that particular employee exists or not. If it does not exist, so we are throwing the exception employee not found exception using the global exception handler. So that's why that exception is correct. So that and as we are not mocking this one, so this is throwing that, so it is covering the negative scenario also. So to cover the to convert to negative to positive scenario, what we'll be doing it, repository dot find by id we need to call here, and here we need to pass the id as 9. We have declared the id somewhere, not declared, right? Just copy here. 98. Okay, So whenever this IDs has been passed, then what we need to return, then return this empty object, but it will be optional, so we need to map or convert into the optional, wrap it using the Java optional. Okay, now it will learn it, because it checks whether the particular employee exists or not. If it exists, then only it will see here one text is passed. So it is working now. So we need to mock each and everything whatever we are doing with the repository here. Basically we are checking whether this particular employee exists or not. If it does not exist, so we are throwing the employee not found exception. So earlier what we are doing, we have not covered this, whether this employee exists or not, so it was throwing that employee not found exception while mocking it. So as of now what we have done, we are checking when repository.find by id calls with the same id, so we should return the optional dot of nullable, that particular employee object what we have declared using before each, and then we are calling the repository.save, and then we are returning the new employee with the updated name, and then we are checking using the assert equals that id is same and the name is same, and then we are calling the verify method to check whether that particular object or method has been called or not. So till now what we have done, we have done the get one, get employee by id by test, get all employees test, then save employee test, then now we need to write the test case for the delete one. Just you need to understand how you need to mock it. It is very easy to write it, the test case using the Mockito. Delete employee by id test. So here also we are checking it in delete also, that whether that employee exists or not, and then we are deleting it. So same thing here also we need to do it. We need to copy this, firstly declare it long id equals to 98l, then if this is the case the object exists, then we are simply we need to delete it. We do not need to check anything here. Service.delete by id, and here we need to pass the id. Okay, so what we have done now, what we need to do, we need to call the verify method. As in deletion we are not checking how many records are deleted, so simple way is that we need to verify whether that particular method has been called or not. So verify repository dot find by id, first thing is that id you need to pass, then verify repository dot delete by id, and here we need to pass the id. So this will check whether that particular method has been called or not. Anything we are doing wrong here? Required. So here what we can do, we can, instead of calling the delete by id, as it is returning some required type is that it returns some generic variable, but provided is void, so that's why it is throwing the error. So what we can do, we can check whether this method has been called or not. Simple, delete by id, I guess think. Okay, this will also not work here when repository.find by id is there. So what we can do it, simply okay. Mm-mm-mm. It will break it. Actually the thing is that repository dot, or instead of delete is there, right? So instead of calling delete by id will not work in the verify, we need to pass that whole employee object entity, and delete method we need to call it directly. That will be a good approach actually. Okay, this is also not working, something so we are doing wrong here, so that's why it is not working here. Oh, my mistake, we are calling the wrong way. It will work or not? Let us check. It will work. basically verify, then repository. We are writing the wrong way, so that's why it was in find by id didn't give any error. Hmm. Now it is fine. So this will basically check whether this particular repository delete by id has method has been called or not, and then find by id has method has been called or not. And now we need to annotate with @test. Mm, mm, mm. Okay, it failed. Let us check the error. Wanted but not invoked. Repository.delete by id. What it is saying? Oh, okay. Delete by id will not work directly in this scenario. The best approach is in verifying it, we need to pass this delete method only, and whole employee entities has been deleted or not. So that thing it can verify it. That is the best approach. Now it will work it. Let us quickly rerun it. Hmm. So basically the thing is that in where repository.delete by id, earlier it was giving the error because it verifies that particular delete by id has been called or not. So instead of that, we have the delete method. So to check whether that particular whole employee entity has been deleted or not. This is the way we can fix that. So as of now, we have covered all the positive scenarios of the CRUD application, whatever we have created: the get API, post API, update API, and the delete API. Okay. Now I will cover one negative scenario also. Suppose that employee object does not exist. If sometimes na, they in real world project they ask you to write the cover the negative scenarios also when writing the unit test cases. So public void update employee not found. Okay. Now in update employee, what we were doing it that we were declaring one employee DTO object. So that only we will be doing here also. Employee DTO 98 is the ID we have kept it. Then Mohan was the name. Then when firstly we are checking that that particular employee exists or not. So when repository dot find by ID, and we are passing the ID directly here instead of declaring. Okay. When repository dot find by ID 98L existed, so then return optional. As we are covering the negative scenario na, so we will pass the optional dot empty directly here. We have written the test case only that if that particular employee does not exist. So we are directly enforcing the Mockito or mocking here that this employee will not exist. So that's why whenever we are calling this particular ID with that find by ID, so it will returning the optional dot empty. Now here we are having one method assert throws, and inside that we will be passing the or calling or throwing the new runtime exception, and inside that we will be service dot update employee, we will be passing it DTO. Then asset throws we are throwing it, then verify. And here what we need to do, we need to check that particular method has been called or not. Repository dot find by ID, and here we are passing the 98L has been called or not. Here it is giving the error. I think we have declared somewhat the wrong way. Cannot resolve constructor runtime exception. In this way, we do not write it. We have declared the wrong way. So runtime exception dot class, just declare it. Then here we need to call that particular service method. Service dot update employee is that, and here we need to pass the DTO. Yeah, this is correct. Let me format the code. Let us run this. See here. Now let me run all the test cases. So how many test cases we have written? 6 test cases we have written, and all the six test cases are passed here. Yeah. So test cases has been covered. Now we will be moving to next chapter. Okay.